Well, what if you walked in on your girlfriend watching porn with men? How would that make you feel?
People find it hard to admit that it might be the right thing to do.
Does she have a low sex drive? Or is that her way of saying, I know you're looking at other girls and it makes me feel uncomfortable? It's finding a purpose. It's realizing that being addicted to pleasure and constantly consuming it then consumes you.
People do need to talk about it because I think it only has one road. I do think it's very negative. I can only imagine if things carry on going the way they're going, what it will be like in 20 years.
It's very shallow to just watch porn masturbate. It doesn't bring you anything. It has no return on investment. You know, it's a waste of time.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I have the pleasure of welcoming back for a part 2, Ben, the NoFap King. But before we dive into this episode, just like to say a big thank you to my podcast sponsor, which is Casita Properties, the UK leading property company when it comes to off-market discreet buy-to-let sales. All the description will be in the link below. That was the other way around. All the links will be in the description below. I am getting good at saying this, by the way. Right, Ben, introduce yourself, my friend, for those who didn't see part 1 but should go and check out part 1 if you haven't.
Yes, so my name's Ben. Oh, right, the mic ready.
Did that on the first one as well?
Did I? Yeah, my name's Ben. I'm a guy who makes videos on TikTok about all kinds of things, but I'm mainly known for being the NoFap King on TikTok. I make videos about how NoFap is beneficial and how it can help you in many different ways, which I'm sure we'll talk about. I also like fitness, health, and yeah, that's kind of it. Got an Instagram, things like that. Let's
do the quick 20-second and 30-second overview of what NoFap is. So for anyone who is brand new to this, give us that quick overview, and then we're going to dive into the questions.
Perfect. So yeah, NoFap is basically essentially the practice of not watching porn and not masturbating. Essentially what it is, it's where you don't look at content that, you know, online, like pornographic material, and you don't, you know, masturbate. That's what it is. And essentially the idea is that porn in itself is extremely detrimental to your health in terms of, you know, what it can do to your brain, to your social skills, to your relationships. And then on top of that, there's also an element in terms of what keeping that energy, you know, that you release during sex or whatever within you, and how that can benefit you in your life and you can use that energy for something else. And it's very powerful. And it's a very popular movement that a lot of people are starting to clock onto and are very, very interested in. So
yeah, well, since we've had the part 1, I've spoken with many people about it. We've also, me and Paul have done lives with other people. You've joined lives. It's something that certainly I've spoken a lot more about, which is, you know, off topic of my normal conversation, but then actually I'm talking about a lot of things now. So it's something that has come up a lot more. And one thing I have noticed, even from the TikTok clips, your TikTok clips that you've chopped up, is it does have a lot of interest around it. Like it really has. And it's funny because I think whether people are genuinely interested, whether subconsciously they're interested, people are nonetheless interested in this topic. So whether they agree or whether they don't know what to feel about it, it is obviously something that is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. So the more people that talk about it, actually, I think it is a good awareness since we last spoke. So what kind of feedback just off podcast 1 that we did have you had?
It's funny, not the best, to be honest. A lot of people don't like being told that what they love to do, they shouldn't do. You know, when you tell someone, listen, the thing that you enjoy the most every day, that you go home to and it's your little thing you love doing in your own time, when you say, by the way, that's messing you up, it doesn't bode well for most people. And that's why it gets a lot of backlash, but that's more of a denial. People are like, they're not quite ready to change themselves for the better. They're not quite in a position in their life where they're ready to go, you know what? Like I want to try and better myself. I want to be the best I can be. What can I do to be better? But it's the people that are at that point that kind of go, what's this guy talking about? You know? And that they're the ones that try it. And then they're the ones that are in the comments like, this stuff changed my life. So there is a big polarity in terms of the response, but it's in a good way, and it's not like a neutral thing. It's like either you love it or you hate it, which is always a sign that it's something that is, you know, that's why it's so popular, I think. Yeah,
I think also people find it hard to admit that it might be the right thing to do. I actually had this conversation. It's very unlikely that she's going to watch this, but there was someone at my gym who openly admitted that they were addicted to watching porn, and the fact that it takes off your feeling towards your partner. It can affect relationship. You know, sexually, you might look at someone and think, I'm not that bothered, because you're getting this satisfaction from your laptop, phone, whatever it might be, and you almost lose that sensitivity to the real thing because you're getting such a quick fix. And one thing that I really think is very true is that when a male or a female goes onto porn, goes through with the act, there's not many people that will open up porn and go, do you know what, I'm going to make this a 45-minute session and I'm going to have a build up. Most people will get in, get done, and they move on. So it's almost like when you hear people say to last longer during a sexual act, you would build up, you would stop, you would do that like training yourself, whereas the act of watching porn and masturbating is like a quick fix. So it's almost, and this is what we touched on, people are actually suffering from erectile dysfunction at, in their 20s and stuff like this. And this is a very much a real thing, and this might only get worse, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, that's the thing you said, it's that build up. But with the porn, when you're watching porn, you're training yourself literally to get to that finish line as quick as possible. It's all about you. It's me, me, me. I want to make myself feel good. When you're with another person, it's two people. So it should be, you should be in a way sort of service in a way to make sure they're getting what they want. And so, yeah, it's quite a selfish thing. And yes, it does have a very detrimental impact on people's relationships massively. Like a lot of men that watch, for example, my clients that I help, they'll have a girlfriend that's like, oh, my girlfriend doesn't like it. And, I feel bad, but I can't help it. I'm addicted. I'm like, and then they'll say something along the lines of, yeah, but, she has like a low sex drive and stuff. And I'm like, does she have a low sex drive? Or is that her way of saying, I know you're looking at other girls and it makes me feel uncomfortable? And then I always say to them, I'm like, do you think it's right to watch porn when you're in a relationship? And like, what's wrong with it? Because we're so used to doing it, because you do it, you're kind of desensitized to it. But then I'm like, okay, you think it's normal, right? Well, what if you walked in on your girlfriend watching porn of men? How would that make you feel? And all of a sudden it kind of, how would that make you, in terms of your self-esteem, to know that your girlfriend is looking at other men to be sexually like turned on? That would really hurt your self-esteem. So when you look at it like that, you realize how it makes a woman feel. So then I think also on top of that, a woman will never give herself to you fully if you're not with her fully. So if you're half in, if you're if you're looking at porn, you're giving part of yourself to people she doesn't even know, you don't even know. Whereas if you were to just solely, dedicate yourself to that woman, you'd give her all of you, and she'd give herself to you, because and that's what happened. Because with my client, I explained that to him, and when he got to a certain point, he even said his girlfriend like just was more open, more down, more just relaxed. So yeah, we don't realize how much it affects relationships. It's quite a new thing, and it's not really been played out, and it's very accepted in terms of today's culture. There's talks about like, oh, is porn cheating? And the fact that that's even a question is, to me, is interesting, because I would have thought that is 100% cheating. Yeah, absolutely.
It's very selfish, isn't it? I think the thing is, because it's not spoken about and no one really sits there long enough, because I don't think they really want the real answer. And like you just said, I do feel it's more one-sided. I do feel if most men knew that their wives or partners were watching porn to another male, most men would cop the arse. Like, that's the God's honest truth. Most men would.
It hurts your ego, doesn't it?
Well, I don't know if you've seen it, but there is a bit of a comedian clip with Kevin Hart where he was talking about watching porn, and his wife was like, oh, it's good because I watch porn as well. And he was like, what? And like, yeah. It's, like, go find that clip. But that literally is that's most men. If they were to find that it was on the flip side, yeah, it would then, I can only imagine that it would make the male think, oh, right, well, I'm not enough. And I suppose actually do we stop to actually think like that? I think the God's honest truth is we probably don't actually put ourselves in the woman's position to think that's probably why, going back to have they actually got a low sex drive? Probably not. They're probably just not feeling great because they know that you watch porn.
Definitely.
So it is very true.
I think there's a harmless intention with men. I don't think men intend to hurt their women or whatever. I think it is purely, the women they're watching, they're not in love with those women. It's literally just a visual thing to get
it's a fix.
What they want, right? But I feel like if you want to be the best you can be, you need to kind of get yourself to the next level. You need to kind of raise above that and hold yourself to a higher standard. And that's kind of what the whole NoFap thing is. It's all about, really.
But this is the dangerous thing with social media, moving on to like social filters and what we're exposed to. I mean, TikTok for me has to be one of the worst that I've ever seen on there. And Instagram, if you open up your discovery page or whatever it is, you see things on there. But on TikTok, it seems to be they don't really have too many guidelines in terms of filtering stuff off. It seems quite bad. That's an ownership on the social medias, you know, on the ownership on that platform. Like, they should be filtering that, but it draws in attention, it draws an audience, it builds following, which helps the algorithm, which helps TikTok grow. So at what point does that stop? Because I can't see TikTok limiting what women or men can expose, and that's quite dangerous.
Yeah, I think it also, because it's such a big platform, all the stuff slips through the cracks. I think there is guidelines in place, but because it's quite subtle, you know, it kind of slips through the cracks in that regard.
How do men avoid temptation? And I'm talking more men because, you know, we hear this whole thing, women are more on the emotional side. I don't think all women are. I think that's a majority, but I think some women don't have that emotional side like some women. But in terms of temptation for like men, when they're coming across this stuff all the time, we touched on it in the first podcast, is like this whole, for a male, it's purpose or pleasure. And if you haven't got purpose, then you seek pleasure. And if you haven't got, anyway, you're kind of in limbo land. Anything's game almost. You know, it's kind of like, what's the guy doing? How do people actually avoid temptation? Like, what techniques or what should someone be doing if they're like, I feel I'm getting in a bit of a dangerous position here?
That's what you said. It's finding a purpose. It's realizing that being addicted to pleasure and constantly consuming it then consumes you. You become the product. You literally become, you know, you're what's feeding this monster that is porn, right? But when you find yourself a purpose and you realize that you moving away from these things and focusing on that, it's much more fulfilling. It makes you happier. It makes you feel like you're leaving your mark on the world. And, you know, once you get into that groove, there's kind of no going back. And this is the thing when I work with people. It starts with the choice of wanting to change. That's the first thing. So that comes from the awareness. So once you're aware of the benefits, if you're ready to change, you'll make that choice and you'll go, right, let's do this. And then it is literally, you have to work. You have to try really hard. This isn't easy. We're talking about addiction. We're talking about things that are extremely pleasurable. I sort of like to think of it as like a fire. It's like, to start a fire, you know, the first thing you got to do is get some wood. Like, sorry, I just whacked the mic again. Like, you like sort of get your little thing going. Then you get like a little ember. That's kind of like the thought of wanting to do it. Then you find some kindling, which is almost as if like trying to not look at stuff. Then you get the ember there, you start blowing it. And as time goes on, you kind of, it takes a lot of effort to initially get that fire going. But once you've got it going, you can keep adding logs, you can keep adding, and then eventually you've got a big burning flame. And then once you've got the ball rolling, you're like, you know what I mean? That's the main principle, is the fact that you need to, it's going to take a lot of effort. Like, initially, you're going to need to really consciously every day remind yourself why I'm doing this, because a lot of it is habit. I mean, guys that have done this for decades, you know, they've been watching porn for decades. It's like, it's a habit, it's habitual, but you need to break that habit, which takes a period of time. And once you've done that, then you'll find that it's a lot easier. And anyone could get to a point where they could look at women, they could look at the things that would once take over them and not have to give into it. It's that self-control, but it takes time and it takes discipline.
I feel like these type of conversations, for it to really make an impact, because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, but how is it, I know we touched on this previously, but I'm thinking, okay, how is it actually tackled on the bigger scale? And I feel like these are conversations that, you know, my son came home from school and he's having his sex education conversations, and he can't stand it. He's like, I don't like talking about it and all this stuff. But I feel like these types of conversations will eventually need to move into school. And although they're a bit taboo and everyone's like, oh, you know, put my fingers in my ears, don't want to hear about it, you know, even saying the word like porn, masturbation, semen, everyone's like, oh my God, you're saying the word out loud. I mean, I actually put one of our clips up on LinkedIn, and we were talking about LinkedIn being professional, and I think I put the title of, yes, I've just said the word porn and masturbation on LinkedIn, where you're meant to be talking about business. But people do need to talk about it, because I think it only has one road. I do think it's very negative. I can only imagine, if things carry on going the way they're going, what it will be like in 20 years.
Absolutely.
I mean, what would relationships be like if men and women can't pull away from porn? And as we touched on it before, my God, what's it going to be like when you can pop on some VR goggles and you can go down to Game and buy a little add-on to whatever you do. I mean, it's scary, you know, like we joke about it, but you know, they will be selling little add-ons with the VR goggles. And
that is the way it will go for a lot of people. Will quite happily live, that's their life. But I mean, I'm more speaking to individuals that there is something inside of them that this is what every client I've had is, there's something inside of them that is calling them to be better. It's pulling them. There's two sides to them. There's that side that wants to feel good, but then there's this deeper feeling of, you know, because that's why guys feel depressed. It's because they're not fulfilling their higher self, their higher what they want to do with their life, and that's what's holding them back. So I'm just helping them tap into that part of themselves that wants to be better. For a lot of people, they don't have that spirit inside of them. They don't care to be better. And I could say a million things about the benefits. I could give you evidence. I could do everything, but it would never convince them. But for the guys that watch these videos and think, you know, I can see a vision for myself, or some guys don't even know what they're capable of. Some men don't even know what their potential is. But until they try this, then they realize there's more to me. You know, I say to my clients, you've been doing this for the last 12 years. You don't even know who you are yet. You haven't even experienced your full self at its, you know, at its like top potential, if you know what I mean.
It's also a form of like procrastination, isn't it? Because I think men, if they watch porn and masturbate, you know, I don't think I wouldn't say there's a perfect time during the day. I would say that if you were to take 100 men and ask them all what time of the day would you go ahead and do the act, I think you'd get all different times during the day.
Yeah.
But the ones that might choose that time during what should be working hours, well, if they're going to go release, you know, their semen, then they might procrastinate after, because naturally it's going to make you tired and stuff like that. So you're also losing your own will and drive to do something productive that day.
Absolutely.
And that's where I think the massive benefits are, if you really want more from life and you want to gain all the benefits, you want to do well in business, whether it's fitness, whatever it might be, you have to really sort of zone in and work really hard. And I think just throwing that random time during the day where you nip upstairs or you do your thing and then you're like, oh, I'm knackered now, what am I going to do? You've lost your productivity for the day. I think that must be do you have those conversations with people?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, but this is the thing with the clients, because they do it every day. It's like they've never kind of filled up the tank. So tank's always been running on empty. But when they've like done it for 2 weeks and then they mess up and then they're like, man, I feel heavy, I feel this, I feel that. And I'm thinking, see, but that's a good thing, because now you know that you went somewhere higher and now you've come back down. And there's many, you know, it's been known for a very long time, you know, ancient cultures, ancient medicine practices, they've all understood this power of this sexual power that we have. And it's more mainly for men. This is more of a men thing, like, because it is to do with literally the semen. That's what's the driving life force. I mean, one drop of semen literally could repopulate the whole of the United States, every single person. I mean, if you think of that, that is an insane amount of energy that is the body, and this is to reproduce. Your body's doing it to reproduce. You know, it's gonna give everything it's got. You know, if you're just wasting it constantly, yeah, you're gonna feel drained. And why are these guys, you know, like you said, the guy just goes up to nip up to quickly. It's a lot of it's now, for a lot of guys, it's a habit. It's all they know. It's all they want to do. They don't realize that, you know, they don't need to do it. You know, they could just get a girlfriend. You know, it's way more. It's much better to have that than you're very limited if that's the thing you enjoy the most in your life.
Yeah.
You really haven't got a grasp of what life is. You really haven't got an appreciation of the beauty of what life could be. You're very stuck in a very simple, low.
And that most people won't know it. I mean, if anyone watches this and they're thinking, you know, and maybe it relates to them, but they're not yet admitting it, is that it will affect your relationships. Like if you were to do that before your partner or whoever comes home, you're not going to be as loving and as affectionate as you would if you, like you say, you know, you were giving your all to them and you were solely focused on your, you know, your sexual energy on that person. And that will have, over a period of time, that will have a negative effect. It can only have a negative effect, but I don't think many people really stop to think that is the case. Like that might be the case why people are arguing. You don't know.
But most of these guys that are arguing, they don't have anything going on in their life. You know, that if they were happy, they wouldn't leave a comment on your video, because they wouldn't be pissed off because they'd be happy. Why would they want to comment and say this is bullshit? They're saying it's bullshit because it contradicts their reality. It's like, no, I want to enjoy this. I like this. You know, I like my small little life.
People know.
Yeah, that's the thing. And this is the thing, I'm not telling anyone anything. You know, you can do what you want. I'm just saying that for some people out there, they want to try this and see what happens.
So let's talk about something I've brought up a few times. And when I've brought this up with other guests, mainly females, I'm always a little bit reluctant when I pulled it up. Paul knows exactly what I'm going to say now, is that for women especially, I do feel that going into a world where we talk about business a lot and we, talking about following through with, things that you love to do and trying to turn it into a business, whatever it might be, or for a woman who's good looking, got a good figure, is it just easier to start an OnlyFans? Because my friend down the road, Daisy, she's earning like 20, 30 grand because globally men are paying me $8.99 a month in America, Dubai, wherever it might be. And I can earn 20 grand just for doing something from home. Or do I pursue my university degree and stuff like this? Do you think that girls especially are, in an ultimatum? Do you think that's the reality that we're at, or is it not that simple?
I think if you were to take a lot of women and say, you can make this much money from selling pictures of yourself, there's a lot of women that would jump on that and they'd be like, yes, let's do this. Because, I think there's a lot of women though that at the same time would feel it would destroy their self-worth in a way. They would definitely feel like that's a very, like a low self-esteem sort of thing to do. So I think, whatever people want to do, yeah, but it is what it is. It is a position that you can do it. You can pretty much do anything these days, so at the end of the day, it's everyone's choice what they want to do. But like I mentioned in the last podcast, do you think that a man, that maybe one day the man that you wish to be with when you're later in your life, and he finds out you have an OnlyFans, do you think he's going to want to be in a relationship with you? Or do you think that would be something that holds him back and makes him think, wait a minute, that's not really what I want to be associated with? And this is what women need to consider. And again, I think, it's a lot to do with your self-worth. I think if that's all you bring to the table, if that's your only, if you play off that, then great. But I feel like as a society, it limits us in terms of where we're going. What's the next thing? It only grows the problem more, with the more that women kind of.
I think there's two things here, right? And this is where I think the biggest battle is. This is the way that I see it. And it is for men as well, because I know you could do a men's OnlyFans, but I think there's two things. When you have the likes of TikTok, where you can have women that can literally strip down into what can only be described as a women bikini, like a man bikini, literally like nothing. You can get paid on TikTok, but the money that you could get paid on TikTok, take off that last bit of string, you're pretty much there anyway. You might as well be on OnlyFans. Do you see what I mean? So there's not really a massive jump from on TikTok wearing nothing to taking off those last couple of bits of string and then moving on to OnlyFans, and then you've got a 20k salary. I'm not saying everyone earns 20k, but it wouldn't be that hard really to go global paying $6.99. So I feel that social media platforms have made the decision even easier, because it's almost like, well, I'm doing TikTok, I only get like 300-400 people joining my lives, I'm not actually getting paid for it. If I literally just take off the tiny little bit of string that I'm wearing, I can go get paid for it. So I think it's almost, they're normalizing it. That's the problem. That's where I see this being the biggest battle, is that they're normalizing like nudity. And nudity is the sexual part of it. And if everyone's nude, then where's the barrier? Do you see what I mean? Like, we're almost kind of, the barrier's almost gone. That's the dangerous part.
Definitely, yeah.
What's your thoughts?
Well, in terms of nudity online?
Yeah, in terms of like there not being a massive jump from, I mean, guys walk around absolutely ripped as hell, whip away the shorts and you got yourself a 10, 15k salary a month.
It's interesting. I don't know. I would say in terms of dating, again, it's like a girl to post something online. Men are visual, so it would have an effect for men to see a girl. Back in the day, you'd have 30 people in your town and you pick one out of them, that's your partner. But now it's like you have an account, you get 10,000 followers, then you've got DMs from guys all around the world who have seen what they see and they want a piece of you. So it could just completely changes the game. And I think women, as they would leverage that. They would think, well, I've got a body, I look a certain way. Why would I not play off that? Why would I not make money off that? Why would I not put myself in a position where I can capitalize on that? Which would make sense. It makes sense for a woman to want to do that, right? But again, it causes problems in the sense that it kind of messes with the whole, like even with dating, again, like if you were dating that girl, would you want her with those pictures, you know, up? For example, like she's got footballers messaging her saying, yo, do you want to come here? Do you want to come there? It's like, how are you meant to deal with that? You know, as in, you know, would you be comfortable with your girlfriend posting things like that? And I think for me, I've always found that modesty in a woman has always been like quite attractive, because just like a man he should be humble, you know, even if he's strong or whatever, it's that same element. It's, you know, you kind of see past your greatness, and you kind of just seek what's more like, you know, not as extreme.
Not so available as well.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, definitely. You should kind of, you know, again, it kind of destroys that intimate connection with someone. If you're giving your body to one person and they're giving their body to you, and that's it, that's a very nice connection you got. When it's given to everyone, anyone to see, it kind of just, yes, you're going to get something out of it, but it's very shallow and what could be just you and someone else.
Do you know, there was a funny test that was done, this was a long time ago, I'm not going to say exactly what the test was, but this is the second point to what I was saying earlier, is I also feel that nowadays it comes down to money. Because if I was to say to you, right, Ben, whip your top off, mate, for a tenner, you'll be like, Aaron, I'm not doing it for a tenner, but like 20 quid. We're going to get to a number eventually, Ben. You're going to turn around. And say it, because then you're going to go shopping with your partner. All right. Okay. So it comes down, you know, for a lot of people, it comes down to the number.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, you know. And so that's the world that we live in, is that you could have people DM someone and be like, I've seen you. I'm a multimillionaire. I'm going to pay you 100 grand if you come and see me. And that's, I'm just saying, really influential people, you know, who are young and sort of, you know, go into this really toxic world that we're in with social media and all these avenues where it just seems normalized now. It'd be really hard for someone to turn around and say no to 100 grand or however much it be. And like I say, it coming down to that number. So in terms of ways to step away from porn for a male or a female, what kind of techniques, or what's the starting point? Because you can't go cold turkey day one, right? It's going to be pretty hard. So how does someone sort of gradually step away and start looking at this?
Well, the starting point is just to start. That's the main thing. A lot of people are like, all right, on Monday I'm going to start, and it's Thursday. You know, it's like you're still attached to that. You need to make a choice. You need to understand that it's not going to be easy, but you need to think, you know, once you see the value in it, the decision is easy. You know, it's like, I know they're going to benefit from this. And also, it's just a case of trying it. Sometimes you don't really know what you're getting yourself in for. Like, I have a friend who, he knows about the NoFap, so he's never really cared. And then he was like, you know what, I'm just going to try it. He's like, whatever, 7 days. And he's like, I've never seen the guy so just like focused, energized. I've done this, I've done that. I feel great. My social skills are better. You know, this is someone who knows nothing about it. He's saying this purely from his own experience. And he's like, I didn't believe it until you kind of got me onto it. So that's the one element. But initially, like even in the Bible, it says, flee your lustful temptations. It doesn't say, you know, block them. It doesn't say ignore them. It says flee them. So that basically means move yourself away from it. You know, if you're an addict to chocolate, why would you leave chocolate everywhere? You know, you'd end up eating it. So that's the first thing, is to disconnect yourself from it. So if you have the app TikTok, if you're going on TikTok and you're seeing all these girls, what would you expect is going to happen? Delete the apps, you know, initially, and then build up that kind of momentum. A lot of it's momentum, and a lot of it's kind of mental discipline. A lot of times you're going to go back to your old ways, but then you need to kind of get out of it again. You can't, I would like to use the description of like, you need to think of it as a boxer in a fight. Like if you're doing NoFap, you're trying to get to a certain point. It's like, if you were in a fight and you got knocked down by the opponent, you didn't get knocked out, you got knocked down. Have you lost? No, you haven't. You have 10-second count to get up and get back in the fight. So it's up to you. Do you want to stay down? If you stay down, if you try it and you give up, you never try again. You'll never get there. But if you get up and you just keep getting up, eventually you will kind of win. And that's all I can really say for guys. It's kind of that, just being patient and just keeping at it, hacking away at it, because you're dealing with something that, you know, you've had for a long time. But yeah, there's a little bit more to it. There's a bit more in terms of kind of, for a lot of guys, they get when they keep, you know, well, if we're talking about porn specifically, it would literally just be to ignore it and just focus on, you know, even if you just use your own imagination, it's better than watching porn.
How long have you been able to, like period wise, like longest period then?
I'd say, I mean, it's hard to say. It's something along the lines of 2 years or something. So it was, you know, like in terms of Just
And would you say the biggest benefit is that focus? That
absolutely, yeah, 100%. It will elevate you to a different playing field. It would take you to, if you're trying to be the best athlete in the world, if you're trying to be the best musician in the world, it will take you to that level, truly. And many people have understood it. Like, you look at Mike Tyson, didn't have sex for he claims to not have sex for 7 years. It's always been well known in boxing that, like,
is that what he said?
He claimed that. I don't know how true that is. I can't take his word for it.
I'm going to say that is
complete bullshit.
Yeah, 7 years, Mike. Yeah, I mean, that'd be a long time, wouldn't it? But I'd see, even with like the whole boxing thing, I think there's some truth to it, but then also I think there's part myth to it as well, because, you know, I boxed for a fair while as well, and I have to admit, I think there's a short-term gain towards a fight. I think medium to long term, as you're building up to a fight, I don't know necessarily, you know, where you hear boxers and they say like 6 months before a fight there's, you know, or however long. I don't know if that does, because I feel like there's a recycling period. I feel like you almost go through, I mean, I'm just going to say it on here anyway, you know, like this whole blue balling myth, stuff like that. I feel like that's a thing, but then I feel like there's a recycling, you know, almost like your body goes through like a reset. Do you see what I mean? Because otherwise, you know, sort of throwing a bit of a funny twist on it, we'd all be walking around with swinging bells, like, you know. Absolutely. I'm throwing a bit of a funny spin on it. But so I feel like there is a bit of a reset process. So that's why I don't think when people say leading up to a fight or leading up to a big event or something that's needing that focus, that there is this big runway needed. It's
interesting you say that. So basically the way that your semen builds up, it's not linear, it's like logarithmic, which basically means in the first 10 to 12 days you make about 80%, you rejuvenate about 80% of your semen, and then in the next, between the 12 days to about 70 days, that's your last 20%, and that takes about 50 days. So it's the reason that happens is because the body has to kind of get that quickly, because if it's assuming it's going to reproduce. So there is an element to, and I do believe that, but I also think, yeah, so that kind of like what you say short term, you kind of leave it for like 7 to 10 days, you will just suddenly feel good, you'll feel energized. But if you go past that point, you will kind of drop off onto a baseline where you will feel more, not as like just full of energy, but it'll be more kind of stable. But you'll still have more energy than the average person. You'll still be more focused. You'll be able to put in a bit more work than the guy next to you.
But I think you need an outlet. Like, you're into your fitness, I'm into my fitness. I think if you have an outlet as well,
yes, definitely,
where you can go and work out and you can almost get rid of that energy, that's where I feel like your reset happens quicker.
That's actually that's what I was trying to say when I went brain dead. So a lot of guys will just build up their energy down there, and they'll be like, oh man, it's taking over my mind. But you need to shift it into, that's what they would call sexual transmutation. It's where you're basically putting that energy into something. Any client I've had has only ever been successful when they're consistently building something, training, creating something, and that's what it is. It's that flow. The energy is going to go somewhere. You know, energy is like, it can't be created or destroyed. It has to go somewhere. So if it doesn't go, if it's not going to sex, it's got to go to something else.
That's where I think probably most men give up. I think, if I was to say the people that I know where I think they wouldn't be able to hack it, is because I'd say there's not an outlet for them to.
And that's why I said the purpose is what you need.
Going back to the purpose, yeah. Whereas I think, you know, sometimes I train twice a day, and I think when you try, I think some people do it to make themselves tired. Like, in all honesty, you know, some people are like, I'm so knackered, it's almost like I need to fall asleep, you know, if they're doing it late in the evening or whatever and stuff like that. But if you're training hard, you've been working hard throughout the day, you've been productive, you've been working on a business, you've been working on yourself, you've got your natural tiredness.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, and it's, you know, it's there. So I think people do use it as a bit of a, and you're totally right. Males will typically, there's no emotion behind it. It's like get in, get out. There's no more to it. Whereas a female might look at it and think, oh, you know, you're looking at her. It's got nothing to do with her. It could be, you know, it's kind of, it is what it is, you know. But the ones that I don't feel could stick it out, yeah, it comes back to the purpose thing. I think that really is a big part of all of this.
And that's what I kind of said in the last podcast. I was like, when you do this, it puts you in a position where you're like, what do I do now? You know, when you cut that out, if I said to you, you can never watch it again, you just can't. Like, even if you tried, your body wouldn't let you. what do you think you would do? You think you would just stand there like a plum, or do you think, well, if I can't do that, then I need to find something else that fulfills me? And then when you do find that thing that fulfills you, you realize it fulfills you more than porn and masturbation ever did, you know? And that's the key, is that purpose. And that makes you a better man. That makes you a more interesting person. That gives you more depth. It makes you, it deepens your character. You know, it's very shallow to just watch porn and masturbate. It doesn't bring you anything. It has no return on investment. You know, it's a waste of time. It literally is a waste of time. You could use that time to be training, lifting weights. Then you build up a body, you have more confidence. You could use that to read a book, to educate yourself. You could use that to prepare a nice meal that's nutritious, can make you feel good about yourself. And this is kind of where society's falling, is because these things are just controlling young men and men to a point where it just makes this society, you know, what some would say like a weak society. And a weak society of men typically causes a lot of problems, you know, in many regards.
Well, we're not channeling our energy in the right areas, but also problem is we have instant access to everything. Like there's nothing, you know, I mean, being funny, but if I worked out enough, I'd probably get it on my watch. Yeah. Like, you know, you know, like what can you not actually get it on? It's accessible everywhere all the time. Whereas I think, I don't know, ring up your phone line and be like, don't let me go on 18 plus sites. Like, I don't know how else you actually avoid it. Like, you know, so I think anyone watching this, if you are sitting there and maybe this is resonating with you and you're thinking, oh, you know, maybe I should give it a go. I think you need to look at how you can put your energy, and like you say, confidence is a massive thing. You know, it's, I can say, I know we spoke about it, but you know, for me, when I sort of stick to this sort of NoFap movement and stuff like this, and you know, I do benefit massively from.
We should share more about
focus. Well, I know you wanted to ask, but you know, like, so I could say now. So it's been like around about like 6 weeks, 7 weeks, and it's not because I've actively gone out my way. I am more aware since we've spoken and before, and more so where it's become more of a talking topic. You know, we've even spoken about it off camera and stuff like this, and leading up to part 2 is that I am now more aware of, I think really from talking about it and then going through with it, you are a little bit more aware of actually, okay, it's not really needed.
You never knew any different before that.
You don't really know any different. And
it was more of a habit. You probably did it just out of like, oh, this is what you do, right? But then you realized it was a silly habit and you thought, I'm not going to do that today.
Yeah, and it's like, I think, you know, I've got a lot of purpose.
Yeah.
So, you know, I stay busy anyway. But then when you get to a certain period of, you know, maybe days, and you're like, oh, it's like 6 days on. Oh, okay, let me see if I can do 10 days. And like when we were speaking, oh, okay, let me see if I can do 2 weeks. And then before you know it, you're like, oh, actually,
it gives you a good sense of pride as well.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, I'm a little bit more focused now, or my day could be a little bit longer because actually I've been able to train twice. I'm a little bit more zoned into what I'm doing and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, look, as we come to a close on this part 2, we'll definitely do a part 3 at some point. But any sort of final words, any top tips for anyone watching this thinking, I'm going to give it a go?
It's a tricky one. I mean, like I said, to start is the thing, to just start. And I think for a lot of guys, if there's a part of them that has that feeling of like, I could be better, or what am I doing in my life, or I'm lost, I don't know what to do, just give it a try. It doesn't cost money. You're challenging yourself. It's like a challenge, you know. It's like, test yourself, see, you know, it's to show how it creates like a masculine energy in you, you know, that discipline, that control. It puts you in a strong position to kind of, because like I said, if you can be, how you do one thing is how you do everything. If you can be disciplined in one area, this area of your life, which is the most stimulating, then, you know, everything else becomes a little bit almost secondary. And on top of that, it will open up the doors for you to find what really does like fulfill you, what really does make you feel better about yourself. And, you know, I understand guys they like it, and it's amongst the friend group and it's talked about and it's normalized, but I think they need to appreciate that there's a lot of potential that they can tap into, and it's right there waiting for them. Just the same way the porn is there waiting for them. NoFap is there whenever they want it, and why not try it? 7 to 10 days, see what happens. You know, my friend who watches porn, he doesn't, you know, he's not into all that stuff. He's a normal guy, like, what would you call normal these days? And he just raves like, I feel so good. You know, it's just very genuine. It's not like a programmed, I saw this video and I think this benefit's happening. Because a lot of it's like, oh yeah, I think this is happening because they've seen a video. It's a very genuine, like, I feel so good. I don't want to stop. I want to keep going. Once you get to that point where you're like, I couldn't think of anything worse than watching porn, that's when you know you're on the right path. That's when you know you're like off the runway and you're, you know, you've kind of had a breakthrough in a way. And I think a lot of it as well, like in your case, you feel good. And I think you feel good, but you don't know how good you feel until you kind of lose it. So maybe when, you know, maybe in time you just got to be self-aware. You got to kind of be in tune with your body and see how you feel, kind of thing.
Mate, I've loved it. It's been a great part 2. Before we do wrap up, where can people reach out and connect with you?
You can find me on TikTok, NoFap King 1. I changed my Instagram name, so it's Ben L Jeffrey. They're my 2 main platforms that I do most of my stuff.
Awesome. Well, dude, it's been a pleasure to have you back on. And for everyone that's watched so far, thanks so much. And we will see you all very soon.